Seniors, listen up. You've worked tirelessly your entire life, often decades of early mornings, late nights, and careful budgeting to ensure a comfortable retirement. You've likely sacrificed your own desires to put food on the table, fund your children's educations, and maintain a secure home for your loved ones. Now you should be able to sit back, relax, and enjoy the fruits of your labor. But what if the biggest risk to your hard-earned financial stability isn't some devious internet scammer or a disastrous investment, but something much closer to home? Sometimes, intentionally or not, the greatest threat to your retirement savings can be your own family. This isn't a claim made lightly. As we grow older, we often believe that the people nearest and dearest to us have our best interests at heart. And in many cases, they do. Yet the lines between support, expectation, and exploitation can blur, especially where finances are concerned. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's unconscious, arising from patterns of dependence developed over the years. Other times, it might involve a deliberate effort to siphon away your wealth. Why should you care? Because your peace of mind, comfort, and the ability to live with dignity in your later years depend heavily on protecting your financial resources. No one wants to spend their golden years worrying about unpaid bills, healthcare costs, or possibly losing their home. And yet, countless seniors end up in precarious financial situations because they prioritize family members' needs above their own sustainability. You might have said to yourself, "I'm doing well enough financially. Of course I should help my children if they're struggling." Isn't that what parents do? Indeed, part of being in a family is supporting one another through tough times. The trouble arises when that temporary help stretches into a recurring pattern, silently draining your resources. Financial strain in a family often starts with the noblest of intentions. It can begin with small gestures, covering a grandchild's daycare fees or helping an adult child with rent just this once. You may not realize how many of these small loans and gifts are piling up. In some scenarios, that quiet financial support can grow into a real threat to your retirement plans. One common situation is the temporary loan that never gets paid back. A distressed adult child calls, short on rent or overdue on a car payment, promising it's a one-time thing. Moved by their plight, you offer a small loan. After all, you don't want them to lose their home or their means of transportation. The expectation is repayment when they get back on their feet, yet repayment never comes, or it trickles in so slowly that it's almost negligible. You feel awkward pressing your child for money, and before you know it, thousands of dollars have been funneled out of your savings over the course of a year or more. Part of what makes this scenario so easy to fall into is the emotional tie. You trust your children, so you don't suspect ill intentions. You might feel guilty asking for the money back, as if you're putting a price tag on parental love. Meanwhile, the total amount keeps climbing, your nest egg shrinks, and your ability to cover your own future expenses wanes. Another subtle yet impactful example is when adult children move home or never move out, living rent-free at your expense. Perhaps they're transitioning between jobs, going through a divorce, or returning to school. You open your doors, happy to provide shelter and comfort, but housing an extra adult isn't cheap. Groceries, utilities, and household repairs add up, and a fixed retirement income can only stretch so far. Many parents feel it's wrong or selfish to ask their children to contribute, but these steady costs can deplete your savings. Over time, what started as a kind, supportive gesture can lead you into financial strain. If your retirement plan accounts for a set amount of monthly expenses, then absorbing additional household members can throw that plan off quickly. Sometimes your money might disappear through guilt tripping, whether intentional or not. It can sound like, "Mom, you've got so much saved and I really need the help right now," or "Dad, you're retired and have plenty of time. Why wouldn't you help your grandkids?" Taken at face value, these could be reasonable requests, but they hide a sense of obligation. You might feel that if you say no, you're failing as a parent or grandparent. Once this pattern of emotional manipulation is established, it can be hard to break. You may hand over funds simply to avoid arguments or disappointing your loved ones, all the while compromising your own security. A more blatant form of exploitation is the "you owe me" mentality. Some adult children believe that because you're their parent, they're entitled to your financial support, regardless of your situation or the fact that they're grown adults themselves. They might frame it as, "You have the money, why wouldn't you help?" or claim you're obligated because of all you did for them growing up. In extreme cases, this can become a near-constant drain on your resources, with you financing lifestyles, paying for luxuries, or continually bailing out someone who overspends or refuses to budget. One of the most alarming possibilities is unauthorized use of your credit, where a relative takes your credit cards or personal information and racks up debt in your name. This can border on identity theft and has profound consequences. You may discover strange charges on your statements or unknown accounts opened in your name. Cleaning up this kind of financial abuse often involves legal battles, damaged credit scores, and heartbreak at the betrayal. Yet seniors are particularly vulnerable to this scenario because they're more likely to trust family members with sensitive information. Unchecked family financial dependence can have devastating repercussions. First and foremost, your retirement savings can shrink faster than you anticipate. When you regularly cover expenses for others, the compound effect can be dramatic, especially given longer life expectancies. You might think you have plenty saved, but you need to be prepared for decades, not just a few years, and draining your funds prematurely can compromise your long-term security. This also impacts your own quality of life. Instead of enjoying the retirement you worked for, you're worried about bills, medical expenses, and whether you can afford basic necessities. Moreover, enabling family members can set a precedent where they continue to rely on you rather than learning to be financially independent. You also risk credit problems and potential legal troubles if you co-sign loans or allow loved ones to access your accounts. Once you recognize the red flags, you can take steps to protect yourself and your money. A crucial first step is to set clear boundaries. Make it known that your financial resources are primarily for your own needs. Explain that while you might help occasionally, it shouldn't be expected or demanded as a rule. One of the toughest lessons for seniors is learning to say no without feeling guilty, but it's necessary. You can practice gentle, firm responses such as, "I understand your situation, but I'm not in a position to help financially," or "I love you and want the best for you, but I can't lend you money again." Offering non-financial support, like babysitting, advice, or networking opportunities, can still show you care without jeopardizing your bank account. If you want to continue providing some help, consider creating a family budget plan. Set a monthly or annual limit you're willing to contribute and stick to it. Focus on essential expenses like food, utilities, and necessary medical bills, rather than handing out money for luxuries. This structure ensures you don't overshoot what you can reasonably afford. It also encourages loved ones to think carefully about whether they truly need financial help or simply prefer it. In more serious situations, you might explore legal protections such as trusts, limited powers of attorney, or financial guardianship. A properly crafted trust can safeguard your assets from misuse, while a limited or carefully structured power of attorney grants someone you trust the authority to help with specific financial tasks. Consulting with an elder law attorney or financial advisor can help you implement these measures effectively. If you do need a power of attorney, ensure it's set up with clear boundaries so you remain in control of your finances as much as possible. Sometimes the hardest part is having the tough conversation with the family member you suspect is taking advantage of you. Begin calmly and empathetically, acknowledging their challenges while firmly stating your own needs and limits. Offer non-financial ways to assist them, such as providing babysitting or career guidance. Be prepared for emotional backlash, as some relatives may react with anger or guilt trips when you set boundaries. Remember that your financial security is at stake, and you're ultimately protecting not only yourself, but also the family from future crises if your retirement funds get wiped out. Because the emotional side of money is so potent, many seniors struggle with the fear of judgment from their children or the worry that loved ones will interpret a refusal of funds as a lack of love. Overcoming this fear begins with recognizing that your worth as a parent or grandparent isn't defined by how much money you can hand out, but by the support, guidance, and care you offer in many other ways. If you keep giving beyond your capacity, you risk resentment, internal conflict, and strained relationships. As you navigate these tricky waters, it might help to ask yourself if your giving is coming from a place of genuine willingness or from a sense of guilt or obligation. If it's more the latter, that's a clear sign you need to pull back. You can strike a balance between empathy and self-care. You can acknowledge that a family member is in a tough spot, yet also recognize that jeopardizing your own security isn't the solution. Encourage them to seek outside assistance, community services, government programs, or training for better employment opportunities. This teaches them self-reliance, which is often the best long-term help you can provide. By not enabling a cycle of dependency, you're doing them a favor in the long run, even if they can't see it in the immediate moment. You might be thinking that your situation is special. Perhaps your children are extremely close to you. You're part of a culture where multi-generational households are the norm, or you're certain your kids would never exploit you. But remember that financial dependence doesn't always start with bad intentions. It can grow from small patterns of reliance, a few borrowed dollars here and there, until you realize you're covering most of someone else's expenses. If you're hearing statements like, "You have the money, why wouldn't you help?" or experiencing dread at the thought of reviewing your bank statements, it could be time to reassess the balance in your financial relationships. In some instances, seniors who need to break these patterns have found success by documenting all financial interactions. Keeping a simple spreadsheet or even phone notes about who borrowed money, when, and why creates transparency. If misunderstandings come up, you have a record to consult. For those who want a structured way to help in emergencies but not be tapped out for every minor need, consider setting up a small, separate fund designated only for genuine crises like medical or housing emergencies. Define what qualifies as an emergency and set a cap so that once it's depleted, it's done until it can be replenished gradually. If you have a larger family, occasional family meetings can bring open communication to the table. Although this might feel uncomfortable at first, it promotes transparency and collective responsibility. You can review any outstanding loans, discuss new requests, and ensure everyone understands your financial boundaries. Keep the discussion respectful and focused on problem solving, emphasizing that you want to maintain harmony and clarity, not point fingers. It's also wise to evaluate your own plans for long-term care. Healthcare and assisted living costs can skyrocket, and if you've been giving away a substantial portion of your savings, you might not have enough left when you need it most. Consider looking into long-term care insurance, and be sure you understand Medicare and Medicaid guidelines regarding asset ownership. This protects both you and your family from potential heartache if a crisis arises and your funds have been depleted. Money often reflects deeper emotional dynamics in a family. If there are long-standing resentments or cultural expectations at play, professional counseling or family therapy might be a worthwhile investment. A therapist can guide you in setting boundaries, communicating effectively, and healing underlying tensions that may manifest through financial conflicts. Even if you manage to fix the immediate money issue, unresolved emotional wounds may resurface in other ways. Comprehensive healing benefits everyone involved. Overcoming objections is part of this journey. You might worry your kids will think you don't love them anymore if you tighten your wallet, or you may feel cultural pressure that it's your duty to always provide. Address these concerns by reminding yourself that you deserve security and peace of mind. If your child's love for you depends on whether you pay their bills, that's a deeper concern about the nature of the relationship. If culture or tradition encourages you to share your resources, remember that responsible planning and boundaries don't violate this. They simply protect both you and your loved ones from potential disasters down the road. Real stories illustrate how others have navigated these challenges. Margaret, for example, housed her grandson after college until she realized he was draining her resources. She calmly explained her pension-based budget and required a modest rent going forward, which her grandson initially resisted but ultimately complied with. Tom lent his daughter money repeatedly for years until he set a strict monthly cap, which pushed her to improve her own budgeting. Elena co-signed an auto loan for her son and ended up with collections at her door, prompting her to seek legal advice and vow never to co-sign again. Setting boundaries doesn't have to mean family gatherings or holiday celebrations become tense. You can focus on experiences rather than expensive gifts, host potlucks, or plan outings to local parks. Encourage everyone to talk openly about financial matters before they escalate into conflicts, and demonstrate responsible budgeting and saving in your everyday life. Show that you're still caring and supportive, but on your terms. When all is said and done, your money represents your life's work and your future security. While family can be a source of deep love and belonging, there's also the potential for undue financial pressures or even exploitation. By paying attention to subtle shifts, loans that never come back, rent-free arrangements, guilt-tripping, or entitlement, you can recognize warning signs early and take action. You deserve to enjoy a comfortable retirement without sacrificing your emotional or financial well-being. Protecting your assets is not about turning your back on loved ones. It's about maintaining your dignity, independence, and stability. There's a middle ground where you can still be the supportive parent or grandparent without jeopardizing your own future. With the right tools and mindset, like boundary setting, transparent communication, legal protections, and professional guidance, you can stand on that middle ground. It may be uncomfortable to say no or set limits, but remember that doing so preserves your resources and fosters a healthier dynamic where family members learn to manage their own finances. If you found this discussion helpful, consider sharing your thoughts or experiences to help others realize they're not alone. By shedding light on these issues, we can break the cycle of silent financial drains and help seniors everywhere keep more of what they've rightfully earned. Never forget that your money is yours. You worked for it and planned for the future. Guard it wisely and don't be afraid to prioritize your own needs. You can still offer love, guidance, and even limited financial help on your terms while preserving the nest egg you spent a lifetime building.